Hey friend, I think the biggest danger in ADHD is going undiagnosed and therefore untreated and developing a whole slew of comorbidities. That's what happened to me. Comorbidities are simply other disorders that coexist with ADHD, like depression and dyslexia. A whopping 80% of adults with ADHD have at least one comorbidity, and studies have shown that earlier intervention can help adjust the trajectory of these other disorders developing and really make a difference if you get in early. Let's run through some of these comorbidities or coexisting, often psychiatric disorders. So different mood disorders like depression and bipolar, anxiety disorders like social anxiety or PTSD. I want to mention nearly 50% of ADHDers have some anxiety disorder. Personality disorders like borderline, narcissistic, substance abuse disorders, learning disabilities, sensory processing disorder, OCD, and ODD, which is oppositional defiant disorder, eating disorders, sleep disorders, Tourette's, autism is often existing with ADHD. And of course, going undiagnosed leads to low self-esteem and feeling like I'm dumb or lazy and those types of things, and suicide rates can be scary. I read this crazy statistic that nearly 1 in 4 women with ADHD have attempted suicide. And not only do these debilitating disorders develop, but they also complicate things and make it a lot harder to recognize the ADHD and to treat it and manage the symptoms. Doctors will often see the depression and go in trying to manage and treat that and do not see the underlying issue of ADHD. And it's just so hard already to diagnose, I think, especially in adults or people that don't manifest and present in the typical textbook way that we're used to seeing, like in elementary schools. And it's hard when someone has this disorder that they've lived their whole life with and assumed that this is just normal and this is how it is, and they don't recognize things that are a problem that they need to speak to a doctor about, because that's just been their state of reality their whole life. It's hard to articulate things that you have never labeled or had words to. So be aware of this stuff for yourself and for family. I think there's so much power in sharing your experience with other people and being transparent about your mental health. So many people's diagnosis stories start by hearing and relating to a friend's experience. Thinking hypothetically is not always very productive, but I do think that there was a lot of potential for me personally to not have developed quite so many comorbidities if I had gotten treatment earlier, or the right treatment, I should say. I developed my eating disorder when I was about 21, and I think that definitely could have been prevented. I was super lost and in a state of self-loathing and, didn't understand myself, was just really depressed, and I think the downward spiral kind of led me into some nasty habits and self-harm and stuff. So the social anxiety thing, I think, would have been hard to prevent. That developed pretty early, which is very common for people with ADHD because they get this feedback from their peers and they're like, oh, the way I'm thinking or doing things is not correct. We sort of learn to be on guard and having to sort of fit this mold of what other students are doing and what we're told is the way to be, even though we feel like naturally that's not how we are. Maybe if I had gotten help, it wouldn't have gotten as bad as it did. It's been very debilitating in my life and definitely affected school, jobs, and like social and everything. I'm not bitter. I am looking to help you guys because it doesn't have to get as ugly as it does for some of us. Just early intervention, I think, is key. And so share your story, share your experience. It can really help somebody recognize something in themselves, or just kind of inspire them to be like, I have this problem. I really should get in and see a doctor and figure this out and get the help that I need. I have so much more work to do on myself, but I'm in a whole nother place than I was at 21, in that really dark place. I can hardly recognize that girl, and it's really hard for me to relate to the mentality I had at that time, really, really unhealthy, where I had spiraled into. So never give up. You are loved, you are seen, you are appreciated, and if you feel like no one else in the world cares, you don't have anyone, I promise that I care about you. I love you. Leave a comment below if you have questions or are seeking advice, and me and other people in the comments can help you out. Don't forget to click on this next video to learn more about how to improve your mental health. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.